It's Teresa Tomeo.
Yeah, we go
Yeah.
from
I will tell you, we've got 12 days till until Palm Sunday, and there's not enough caffeine in the world to get us through it. We need some vitamin T. We need a shot of vitamin T. So good morning to you, Teresa. How are you this morning?
I'm well. Speaking of that series or that docudrama about St. Patrick, I watched the whole thing this morning,
Oh,
actually.
you already
Of course,
did?
we're in Italy, so I have watched the whole thing. It's fabulous. And I think it's called The Hidden Years, St. Patrick,
The Hidden Years. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, but it's
Very nice.
really, really good. And I was thinking, listening to your commentary on the word of the day, his life in many ways is similar to St. Francis, because St. Francis was also brought up in a very well-to-do family, rejected God as a child, and then had this, traumatic experience that brought him to his knees. And the same thing with St. Patrick, didn't really rely on God until he was kidnapped, and then worked as a slave for a Druid in Ireland for 6 years. So I love these dramas because they give us really a good look inside the saint. And I think a lot of these saints, whether it's St. Francis or St. Patrick, St. Joseph coming up this week on Thursday, I don't think we know enough about them. We can never, ever exhaust that in terms of doing more research on the saints. So I really enjoyed it. So I would encourage people to watch it. It's a great docudrama.
Yeah, I love that idea, because otherwise we just think saints are born that way. It's not an easy road. They have to choose to follow Christ.
In difficult
Yeah.
times, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what was so cool about seeing the relics of St. Francis, because you look at this man. I wrote an article for Catholic Exchange. It's going to be published on Friday if anybody's interested. But the relics are so small. Mostly all the bones are there. But doing a little research, they said his stature, even for, let's say, the 13th century, and most men were between 5'2", they estimate, and 5'6". He was probably just between 4 and 5 feet. So he was a very small man physically, but he was a giant, of course, spiritually. And you talk about being humbled, and to see that great saint sitting there before you and still pouring himself out 800 years later. So it wraps up this weekend. We've had a month of an opportunity for pilgrims from around Europe and many from the United States, about 5,000, to come and venerate the relics. And Deacon Dom and I had the privilege of going in 3 times to the Lower Basilica to venerate the relics.
That's amazing. How many people would you estimate, Teresa, have been there so far?
They're estimating, Pat, 400,000 plus. I did an interview with Father Dan Quackenbush, who's from New York State, but based in Assisi. And I asked him, I said, you've had over 4,000 people register. It's so popular. People just loved it. They just flocked to it. And are you going to extend it? He said, no, it ends on Sunday because, Holy Week, of course, is so close.
Right.
Palm Sunday, as Dave said, is 12 days away. But what an experience to be there and to see the relics. And what I love about it is this whole theme of dying to self was prevalent. If you go with the group with a priest, they take you to a side chapel in the Lower Basilica, and a priest gives you a mini sermon for about 5 minutes talking about the theme for the veneration is all about the seed, as we read in John 12:24. And so they talk about St. Francis being a seed who died to himself and then was able to burst forth with so much fruit because of the way he gave himself continuously. And as you go through the church, you go through this snake-like line and walking up to the main altar where the relics are placed in front, you see all these different video screens, temporary video screens on the side of the main sanctuary with messages in different languages based on John 12:24, reminding us that we have to be a seed that is willing to be buried to come forth for Christ. And then at the end of that, the priest takes you to another room, and they give you a special blessing, and you're allowed to renew your baptismal vows. There's an opportunity for confession. They give you a little bag of seeds and also a beautiful prayer card. So the whole experience, if you signed up to go with the priest, you can go on your own and just go through, but they really drive the point home about dying to self. And it was so perfect for Lent, but also every day of our lives.
Well, that's beautiful. And just to be there and to have that privilege, Teresa, of being able to bring people in and show them this and be the vehicle that brings them in front of this presence. What an amazing opportunity.
Yeah, the priests are really being I think they're growing as well. It means a lot to them. Of course, they've been so busy with so many pilgrims. But the one thing that struck me, and Joan Lewis mentioned this on my show a couple of weeks ago when she went, is the reverence that people are showing. If anybody's ever been to Rome, Pat, I know you've been there, and you go into the Sistine Chapel, right, and everybody's talking and they're taking pictures. They don't realize this is a chapel. This is holy ground. This is a church, the Sistine Chapel.
Right.
And you hear the guards yelling silencio every 10 seconds, and you see people being yelled at because they're not supposed to take pictures. There was none of that in the Lower Basilica of St. Francis. People were singing Catholic hymns in Italian and other languages outside. They were laughing. They were talking. The minute we went through those doors, silence. It was so beautiful. And I looked around and they let in about several hundred people at a time. No one had their cell phone out. No one was trying to sneak anything. People were so reverent. It was so touching. That to me, I'll take that with me forever.
Now that's kind of your thoughts about what you were seeing. You want to share any thoughts about your own experience as you approached those bones? What was going through your own heart, mind, spirit?
I think the fact that I really didn't think I knew Francis until I started to research him more, even though I had been to Assisi prior to writing the book, the new second volume of Italy Shrines and Wonders. I had a general understanding of him, but I really researched him in writing the book and the series that I'm doing for EWTN. And I know so much more about him, and I appreciate him so much because he's like so many of us, where he took so much for granted. And it wasn't until he was literally knocked off his high horse when he went down to Spoleto and had that experience. He just is so easy to understand if you just take the time, just like with St. Patrick, to dive in. So I think gratitude, I felt, Dave, awe, to be in the presence. I mean, all of us have been to tombs of saints, but to see basically his entire bone structure, because most of the bones are there, and a very small skull, you're looking at this man who was considered the greatest itinerant preacher since our Lord himself. So I think humility and awe and gratitude that I have the opportunity to do what I do and to bring people to places like this, but also just to experience it. And I feel a responsibility to share it with people. So that's why I wrote a very long article for Catholic Exchange, about 800 words. We've been posting some of the pictures on Facebook.
Yeah,
we can only
I've
post pictures of the relics. Yeah. So, but I think gratitude, probably awe and gratitude, two words I would use to
Teresa,
describe how I felt.
you mentioned the priests that are there. Are these the priests from that parish, or are priests coming in from around the world to take turns in being a part of this?
There are pilgrimages, Pat, that's a great question, that are going through with their own priests. But when you get to the Basilica, if you sign up to go through the Basilica for the relics with the priest, it will be a Franciscan. The Franciscan we had is based in Assisi, but he was just a sweetheart. He was, his father Linus, he was from Zambia. And so all the priests that lead the tours and do the blessings are assigned. They may not be from Italy or from Assisi, but they're assigned there. So it's just really moving. It's very well organized. And it was just so sweet, again, to see so many people of so many different persuasions, mostly Italian, about 5,000 Americans, but there were some Polish groups there and a few other groups as well. So just a beautiful experience, but it wraps up on Sunday, March 22nd.
Well, and being able to go with you on this trip was such a wonderful thing, being able to follow the pictures and all that. So thank you for that. But I want to remind people, I know as you're listening, you're probably not going to be able to go. You want to order Italy Shrines and Wonders, Volume 2, Discovering Sacred Spaces and Fascinating Places in the Life of St. Francis of Assisi, Teresa Tomeo's new book. You can pre-order it now through Amazon, through Barnes and Noble, I'm sure through any of your favorite booksellers. But make sure you pre-order that book now. That's a wonderful way to make a visit as well. Thank you very much, Teresa. Thanks for letting us go
Thanks,
along
guys.
virtually
Bye,
with
Teresa.
you.
Ciao from Italy.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
TeresaTomeo.com is another way to stay up with all going on in the life of Teresa Tomeo as well.